Welcome back to our channel, guys. Grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and settle in. Because today we are peeling back the layers of some truly intense, heart-wrenching, emotional chaos. We have a massive amount of ground to cover regarding the shifting dynamics and the dark secrets lurking just beneath the surface of our favorite gated community. So let's get right into it. Start right in the thick of the suffocating tension inside that hospital room. The sterile, biting smell of antiseptic, the rhythmic, terrifying, and relentless beep of the heart monitor acting like a countdown clock for everyone's sanity. Bill is lying there, incredibly fragile, a mere shadow of the commanding, powerful presence he usually projects. He just went through a massive, life-altering health crisis that sent absolute shockwaves of visceral panic through the entire family. This isn't just a minor scare or a temporary setback. This is a catastrophic, systemic failure of his body. His failing health has suddenly become the ultimate vulnerability, the glaring weak point in a very dangerous, high-stakes game of emotional chess. And standing right there, hovering like a hawk over her prey, is Haley. She is trying so desperately to play the role of the devoted, terrified wife, but guys, you can clearly see the cracks forming in her mask. Her grip on the situation is completely slipping, and she knows it. She wants to dictate exactly who gets to cross the threshold of that room. She wants to be the absolute gatekeeper to her husband, isolating him from anyone who might trigger a memory or a dangerous question. But Bill, in his weakened, desperate state, is completely undermining her carefully constructed authority. He asks for Danny. Out of everyone he could want in his darkest hour, he specifically demands to see Danny. I can't help but feel that this is the exact moment Haley's entire world begins to violently fracture. You can almost see the fury and the raw panic bubbling just beneath her skin, threatening to boil over into madness. Haley is losing her mind because she is losing her absolute control over Bill. Her meticulously planned slow burn agenda is blowing up in her face. And Danny is no longer playing the passive, compliant observer. She is flat out refusing to stand quietly on the sidelines while the man she still deeply, undeniably cares about is fighting for his life. She is directly confronting Haley, standing tall and defending her absolute right to be by Bill's side, and she is doing it openly without a shred of apology. The battle lines are drawn right there in the harsh, unforgiving fluorescent lighting of the intensive care unit, and it is electrifying to watch. It seems like this is so much more than just a cliche, tired story of two women fighting over one man. There is a deep, complex psychological warfare happening here, and the stakes are literally life and death. Danny is finally waking up from her fog. She is starting to realize that Haley's intense hostility isn't just standard run-of-the-mill jealousy. Haley has a fundamental, almost dangerous and frantic problem with Danny's mere existence in Bill's orbit. And Haley knows exactly why she feels so incredibly threatened. She knows deep down in her dark heart that Danny is the one person who possesses the power to pull Bill back into the past. Danny represents a time before all the lies, the deceit, and the manipulation took root. Danny has the unique ability to make Bill question everything about his current reality and his marriage. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but consider exactly where Danny was mentally just a little while ago. She was genuinely trying to move on. She was actively trying to put the heavy baggage of the past behind her, trying to heal, and trying to step out of the massive shadow that her history with Bill cast over her life. But this severe, terrifying health crisis has violently yanked her right back into the very center of his world. The irony of the situation is just staggering when you really look at it. Every single time Haley tries to tighten her suffocating leash on Bill, she inadvertently gives Danny a completely valid, undeniable, and public reason to show up. And the more Danny shows up, planting her feet firmly in that hospital room, the more Haley spirals into a state of absolute, unhinged, and reckless panic. What if Bill's physical collapse is actually a direct biological manifestation of him being torn in two completely different, agonizing directions? He is caught in this vicious, exhausting tug of war that is draining the very life out of him. On one side, you have Haley desperately trying to control his present and his future, masking her incredibly dark, lethal intentions behind a thin, fragile facade of wifely care. On the other side, you have Danny representing a very complicated, passionate, and deeply unresolved past that refuses to stay buried. Bill is physically deteriorating. His heart is literally struggling to maintain a rhythm. And yet, emotionally, he is inching closer and closer to a precipice. He is reaching a point where he will be absolutely forced to make a definitive final choice. He cannot avoid the reality of his conflicting feelings much longer, no matter how weak he is. There's something about this that doesn't sit right with me, especially when you zoom out and look at Haley's terrifying underlying motives. We know she has been slowly, methodically poisoning him. Her entire master plan relied heavily on a quiet, controlled, and unquestioned demise. She wanted to slip under the radar, but now Bill is surrounded by a swarm of doctors, nurses, and most dangerously, his fiercely protective family and his eagle-eyed ex-wife. Haley's lethal plot is in severe, imminent jeopardy of being completely exposed. Every single second Danny spends in that room, looking closely at Bill, analyzing his symptoms, and asking probing questions, is a second where Haley's deadly secret threatens to unravel completely. The tension is so thick, so suffocating, you could cut it with a scalpel. And while all of this intense, life-threatening chaos is unfolding around Bill, we absolutely have to look at the collateral damage spreading like wildfire through the rest of the family tree. Let's shift gears and talk about Vernon and Anita. My heart just aches for them on a profound level. Vernon had these incredibly beautiful, intimate, and special plans set aside for his wife. They are navigating such a fragile, highly sensitive chapter right now because of Anita's terrifying health journey. She just went through the physical and emotional trauma of her lumpectomy, and they were so desperate for just a sliver of peace, a quiet moment to just be a couple again, away from the endless drama. I keep coming back to the tragic thought that they are simply never, ever allowed to just be happy and at rest. Remember when they tried to have that one beautifully planned romantic evening and it was completely abruptly derailed by Kat and Martin? It's like the universe stubbornly refuses to let them catch their breath. They were sitting there alongside Danny and Nicole, anxiously waiting for the critical results of Anita's surgery, holding their breath, hoping for a collective sigh of relief and a chance to finally celebrate life. And then, just as they thought they might be in the clear, the absolute unthinkable happens again. They get hit with the massive, devastating bombshell about Naomi. Finding out that Naomi carries the BRCA gene is a crushing, terrifying blow. The truth might be more complex than it appears because this isn't just standard medical news. It's a psychological earthquake for a family that is already deeply traumatized by the looming shadow of cancer. Instantly, violently, Vernon and Anita are ripped away from their own romantic recovery and their personal healing process. They are thrust right back into the grueling trenches of crisis management mode. They are forced to pivot entirely, abandoning their own quiet plans to focus all their energy and love on this new, terrifying family emergency that threatens to break them. Think about what this means for Anita specifically. She just fought a grueling, terrifying battle against breast cancer. She faced her own mortality, endured the surgery, the radiation, the sheer terror of leaving her family behind. And just as she is declared cancer free, just as she takes a breath of clean air, she has to watch her daughter Naomi face the terrifying reality of this genetic mutation. I can't help but feel that survivor's guilt is eating Anita alive right now. She survived, but she passed down this genetic time bomb. Vernon sees this guilt tearing his wife apart, and it absolutely guts him. He wants to fix it. He wants to protect her from this emotional agony, but this is a battle he cannot fight for her. It just adds this incredibly heavy, suffocating layer of tragedy to their story. Vernon is carrying the absolute weight of the world on his shoulders right now, and you can see the toll it is taking on him. He is trying so incredibly hard to be the ultimate protector, the steadfast, unshakable advisor for everyone in his orbit. He's the one trying to talk sense into a dangerously stubborn Bill, urging him to take his failing health seriously, all while his own wife is still physically and emotionally healing from her own battle. It's a relentless, unforgiving barrage of bad news and high-stakes drama, and you really have to wonder how long Vernon can keep holding the heavy pillars of this family up before he collapses from the sheer, crushing exhaustion of it all. They are so desperate for peace, but peace is the one luxury they simply cannot afford right now. Amidst all this overwhelming darkness, a really fascinating, unexpected dynamic is quietly emerging in the background, away from the screaming monitors. I could be wrong, but the developing quiet bond between Bill and Ted is one of the most compelling and nuanced things happening right now. These are two proud men who are both navigating incredibly turbulent, stormy waters in their own lives, facing severe health scares, romantic disasters, and endless family drama. And somehow, against all odds, they are finding a strange, comforting solace in each other's company. It started subtly, perhaps after one of the recent chaotic family incidents. They found themselves just talking, really talking, in a way they haven't allowed themselves to before. They started looking back at their long shared history, unpacking all the chaotic, painful memories they have survived together over the years. And the profound realization hit them. They had been looking at the exact same traumatic events through completely different, biased lenses for years. By sharing their perspectives, they are tearing down old walls. Think about how deeply and irrevocably entwined their histories truly are. They both have these profound, incredibly complicated ties to Nicole. Ted's past with Nicole is an absolute labyrinth of unresolved emotions, deep regrets, and complex history. Meanwhile, Bill has always been this massive, sometimes overbearing, influential figure hovering in the family circle, casting a long shadow. Ted has had a front row seat to Bill's disastrous, often selfish romantic choices, while Ted himself is currently trying to figure out the chaotic state of his own heart and his future. They have stood shoulder to shoulder through so many intense crises involving Nicole, Kat, Danny, and Eva. They've paced the exact same sterile hospital waiting rooms, drank the same terrible coffee, and weathered the same emotional storms. By finally, honestly talking about these shared experiences without the usual bravado, they are building a completely new, solid foundation of mutual trust. It's fundamentally changing how they view everything around them, how they look at Danny's fierce loyalty, how they understand Nicole's shifting desires, and how they process the bitter, lingering ruins of their own past broken marriages. And going back to Ted, his reflections aren't just about the past, they are heavily influencing his present. Ted is currently in this deep, committed relationship, planning a future, but watching Bill's life literally fall apart because of unresolved feelings and toxic choices is a massive wake up call. It seems like Ted is looking at Bill's fragile state and realizing that you cannot outrun your history. You have to face the messes you've made, especially with people like Nicole, before you can truly move forward. Bill is the ghost of Christmas future for Ted if Ted doesn't handle his own emotional baggage with care. This newfound brotherhood between them is less about offering solutions and more about bearing witness to each other's profound flaws and vulnerabilities. Bill is sitting there, his physical body betraying and failing him, looking back at a lifetime of stubborn pride and monumental mistakes. Ted is looking at Bill, perhaps seeing a dark, cautionary tale of what happens when you let ego and control dictate your heart, while simultaneously facing the heavy consequences of his own past relationship failures. It's a quiet, profound, and deeply moving brotherhood forged in the hot fires of their mutual regrets and their glaring current vulnerabilities. They are two men finally admitting they don't have all the answers. So, where does this incredibly tangled web leave us? We have a powerful family stretched to its absolute terrifying breaking point. Vernon and Anita are heartbreakingly sacrificing their own much needed healing to save their terrified children. Ted and Bill are bravely digging through the cold ashes of their pasts to find some kind of usable truth for their futures. And at the dead center of it all is Bill lying in a hospital bed, rapidly running out of precious time. Haley is tightening the noose, desperate and willing to do anything to silence him, while Danny is standing like an unmovable shield at his door, refusing to let him slip away into the dark. The ultimate chilling question is, will Bill find the physical and emotional strength to finally make the right choice? Or will Haley's dark, venomous secrets bury him before he ever gets the chance? I don't know about you, but I am absolutely terrified to find out what happens next.